Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another sorry, my brain is running ahead of my mouth.
Tie-dye Talks, the
There
third
you go.
episode of our Tie-dye Talks. Go ahead, Paul. Too much going on as usual. It's a Friday.
That's okay. My brain's running ahead of my mouth, which is what it always does. So today's topic is going to be really interesting. Here's what it is. Does perseverance equal success? You've heard it all the time. You need to persevere in the face of adversity. You need to keep going. And we're going to look at the definition of what perseverance means and what success means, because success is different to many people for different things, right? So we're going to look at that and we're going to break it down and define it. What are your thoughts, Andy?
Yeah, does perseverance equal success? A very, very profound topic, Paul. Thank you. I'm looking forward to getting into this because you're right. What do we mean by perseverance and what do we mean by success? I'll take a stab at my thoughts about the word perseverance. Another word that I would use in a synonym for perseverance would be determination. And for me, man, I think that is what drive me as a young man because I remember my mom. Sometimes when you're young, you're looking for something positive to hold on to because maybe you're not getting a whole lot of encouragement or positive words. And I remember hearing my mom say, one thing about that son of mine, he is so determined. So once I heard that, that became the hallmark of who I think I became as a young man. I'm so determined, right? I received that. It got deep into my psyche and it became a characteristic trait that I live by. So determination, perseverance, meaning you just don't quit. Don't matter what is coming at you, you just kind of always look at, I'm going to get it done no matter what. And so I think perseverance is a very powerful word. And when it comes to achieving your success, absolutely. But what is success? See, this is the key. We all have a different meaning for the word success. So for me, as we frame this discussion today, I'm going to look at, does perseverance equal success from the standpoint of, if you stay determined and if you stay persevering or doing and going after your goals, would you be able to achieve them? And so success, I'm going to define for this conversation as achievement of your goal. And then I will say to that question, my viewpoint, Paul, will be absolutely. I think perseverance equals success from that standpoint.
What are your thoughts, Tiff? We're going to throw it over to you.
I personally I agree with Andy in this. I do find that perseverance does equal success. I think the beautiful thing about success is that we do get to define it. I think that sometimes the worldview can kind of get in the way of our own personal goals, and we can lose sight of what we feel that success really means. I believe also that on that path, there's going to be things that if you start to go into that worldview of what people think success is with like the big house and the cars and all that, you can start to veer off your path. And now you're persevering towards something that's not even meant for you. And along that way, though, you can still be successful in learning lessons. And so those are little bits of success. I think that success definitely looks different. It's not just always one big goal. You can look at it as little bits along the way of your journey.
Interesting. Yeah, success to me is a funny one because I've actually been redefining it for myself my whole life. I think success is, your journey. Is success failure? When you fail, can you be successful? The words are in opposition. It's an oxymoron. However, I think failure is part of success, because without those failures, how do you then know what to set your success to be, right? Success is often defined, as Andy had said, as just an accomplishment of your aim, purpose, or your goals, right? But along the way, there may be a negative outcome towards what that goal is that actually pushes you on higher to a bigger goal or to a better goal or to a different goal. That's still part of your overall success, no? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Again, I think I remember I had a very good friend, a reverend, one time that said to me way back when, Andy, I don't like anybody to define me and define success for me and put me in any box, kind of like Tiffany's point. I think, too often the word success in this modern society conveys monetary achievements. You're a billionaire, you're a millionaire, you're successful. right? When if you are defining success, if you set out to be a school teacher to empower kids and transform their life, and that's the thing about life. We all talk in every society the importance of education, but yet we don't reward teachers and educators with the right salaries, and they're doing probably one of the most important jobs on planet Earth. Isn't that a successful person? If you set out to that's your goal, to be a teacher, to be a principal, to empower young lives, and you've done that for your entire career, isn't that success? Without the material things maybe tied to that job, because we have different categories in this world of what success means. But I think today, Paul, a lot of people define it as just having those material trappings, the big money, and those are the folks that's talking and they're doing a bunch of things like this. Hey, the key to success, but it's all tied to financial success. There are different levels of success. There are different categories of success. For me, living your life purpose is success. What you came here on planet Earth to do and you're doing, that's success. And this is why sometimes I always say, when you find your passion, you never work a day in your life, right? It's not a job anymore because you love what you're doing, you're impacting people. And for me, that's success. So for me, I think perseverance equal the achievement of that. Yes, because when it's purposeful and when it's transformational, to me, a lot of challenges show up, right? Because the breakthrough has got so many lives to touch. If you don't go through those challenges and you just quit, what about the impact you could have made if you had persevered? So I think we have to line up the goal, the success, the purpose in order to truly persevere. Now, I won't
You
send
said a
it.
key.
Yeah,
Go ahead, sorry.
Paul. No, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, you said a few key points there. I think the main thing there is define. It's another topic in and of itself, but is focus and purpose, right? Without those, you can be lost. You may think that you're going to be successful or drive your success towards one area, but actually you're not. Maybe it's just part of the bigger journey towards something else, right? Like success to me, it's as I've said, it's not an easy thing to define. It's just a one small thing because I think I've had so many successes along the way. Still, for my own self, knowing who I am and building towards where I want to be and where I'm going. Not everybody has that clarity of vision or clarity of mind, knowing from a young age that, hey, I'm going to be the best, whatever, teacher, soccer player, whatever it is in the whole world, right? So for me, it comes back to the perseverance part, because as you're setting those goals, how are you achieving those goals along the way, right? How are you achieving where you want to set your ladder? If you want to get to the top of something, you better set your ladder to the right wall, the right building, because you could set it to the wrong wall and you get to the top and you realize, wait a minute, I just climbed, Mount Everest, but it's not Everest I wanted to be on top of, right? So again, you have to persevere, because if you never climb anything on the ladder, you won't go anywhere. But I think the process of going through climbing that ladder and getting to the top of the mountain has a huge effect on you. See, we're often so defined by labels, right? Like you said, teacher, professor, coach. Those are all labels that we all ascribe to our identity. And it's funny because, you go, you meet people, you network, you ask them, first thing comes out is, what do you do? Like as if our life purpose is the job that we're currently trying to make money to make ends meet, to take care of ourselves, or the one thing that we're doing. And oftentimes, like you said, you see a lot of these coaches or success gurus or people trying to sell you success and tell you what success is and help you get success. Well, you're actually part of their success because you're paying money to them to get them to where they need to be, right? And, yeah, you might get something out of it, but the whole idea is identification of what it is you're labeling a success. So for me, does perseverance equal success? Sometimes it doesn't. You can persevere in certain things and you're not successful, but that doesn't mean that having those setbacks or not having success is not going to stop you. Because to me, success, I look at it not as only for simple things as a goal. I look at it as as you were saying too before, Andy, your life-given purpose at the end. Sometimes you only really know it at the end. It's all these things are part of the bigger part of the puzzle towards your end goal of when you say that, you look back on your life, right? When you look back, which all of us have to, unfortunately, there comes a time whereby we're past, we all are weighted down to the memories we have left and imparted upon others. And usually, a one pager or a few paragraphs about who we were or what we did. So we have to make the most of it while we're here. And a lot of it, more than anything else, is not written on a piece of paper, and it's not written in terms of your label. It's written on the hearts and minds of people you've touched. So your success, what is that really, right? it's what's been your overall goals and achieving them, but also your influence of many people. You know, and that's what you're left in terms of the minds and hearts of many people. So to me, that's kind of what success is. But over to you, Tiff.
I have, I guess, two stories that I'll share. So one is personally about me. So growing up, I was pretty much good at mostly anything that I would put my head to. However, I didn't really have a goal. I really very much so went with the flow. I went to school because I had to. I kept my grades high because I had to. I enjoy playing football. When it was time for me to go to college, I actually had a lot of people that wanted me to play for them, but because I was just so lax about getting into college and I didn't really have that push per se, a lot of them had already shoveled out all their money. So they were like, "Well, you can come and you can walk on." I was like, Psh, not gonna walk on no team. And so there was one college that had offered me a scholarship, academic and athletic, and I took it. It was all the way in Maine. I am originally from South Florida, so I went from one end of the country to the next. And so when I got there, when I threw myself into the world, and I very much so take responsibility for that, I threw
Mhm.
myself into this world. I found myself having to look back a lot in certain areas because I had this very big view of like, woe is me. Oh my goodness, I'm so, lost and it's all, crazy. And so a lot of times I had to look back on these things that I went through and say, okay, well, what did this teach me? Like, I had to go through this and I put myself through a lot of things that I deemed unnecessary per se. And I blamed a lot of other people, but I went through that on my own because I put myself in that position to go through that. However, through that journey, through that veering of my path, I learned a lot. I was forced to look back and learn lessons and take from it. And I very so much believe that if you are on a path and you don't find the lessons from that, you will keep going through that path again and again until you learn. You will keep, it's almost like a video game. You'll reach that checkpoint when you finally learn what you need to learn from that level.
You're
The
stuck on
other
level
part of
5 and
this,
you're trying to beat the big boss, right? Still trying to beat
yeah,
the big level 5. I
yes,
want to get to level 6, but I can't get to the big boss
yeah,
keeps coming after me.
you don't have all the tools yet. So you don't get to
Yeah.
move on to the next level. So you need that. And so once I started to kind of sit back and say, okay, what do I need to take from this experience? My life changed so much with that mindset that I had grown. It was like phenomenal. And so on the other hand, my brother was very much so the opposite. He was very determined. Which both of us, our parents really were that whole like money makes you a successful person type of mindset. And so like when I ended up going to college, my dad wanted me to be a nurse practitioner. He said, "Oh, they make 90K a year. It's great." So I had gone on this biology route just willy-nilly. And my brother actually went in the science route too. He had dropped out of college, did a couple things through life, came back to college, got his degree in cell science actually, and they were like, "Oh, that's great, you're gonna go be a doctor." But I remember growing up and being like 10 and in the expedition traveling to, a football game, and my brother would put on this Navy SEALs documentary. Like he was obsessed with the Army, forever wanted to be in the Army. And so he very much so also veered off his path. He went all the way through college and graduated at, I think, 30 years old. He graduated with his degree. And so it took him years, but now he's finally in the Rangers. He's living out his full dream. And I think that that really defines his success. His mindset has completely changed from when we were growing up. He's matured quite a bit. And I think that that kind of speaks to that persevering will eventually equal success. There may be more speed bumps if you don't do it the way that the path is asking you to, because if you keep getting distracted and wanting to go down a side road, I think that that makes your journey a little bit longer, but it still makes it worthwhile.
Well, you guys have triggered a lot. So I've been anxiously waiting because I have so much spinning on this equation that Paul threw at us today: perseverance, success, right? And in that journey, we can throw in happiness and life purpose. Because really, if we talk about persevering towards success, why are we going that route? Because with that perseverance roller coaster comes a lot of different life lessons, right? Our theme in this tie-dye talks is life lesson. So perseverance brings the life lessons to you. And sometimes when it's good, We in a euphoric state, but when it's down in the valley, this is when you really have to dig deep on this perseverance part. But I think what Tiffany just said is when we learn to embrace the journey, the real journey of this perseverance roller coaster or the determination roller coaster, you really enjoy the destination. It's kind of like what's coming to mind is the first time we were going to, my wife and I were going to New York. We were in college, Boone, North Carolina, and Brooklyn, New York is 14 hours away. Yes, and coming from the little island, we never drove more than a couple hours, and we used to call it long. Going to the southern part of Trinidad, we say, "Oh man, that's a long trip." You come to North America, you have a different perspective of how long is. And we head into New York, right, guys? And we got into the 13th hour. Now remember, she had never driven any. We didn't build up, right? It's like straight from 0 to 14 hours trip. Right now, I love driving. Every hour for me was like an adventure. We seen different states. Da, da, da. She says to me, "Babe, you mean we have to drive all the way back?" She's already putting her mind into more pain of the return trip instead of enjoying this journey that we going to. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what you said. If we don't get caught on, okay, why are we doing this? And it's gonna have the ups and downs. But as a biologist, I'm gonna say this: if you look at the heart rate, it's an EKG. You know what it goes, right? That's the EKG that knows that we all alive. If it goes like this, you know what that means? We no longer here. So if we learn to enjoy that EKG level of how we should live and persevere and put more enjoyment in the process of the doing, I think the joy is in the process, Paul, as opposed to the destination success, because it's a moving target. You kind of said that earlier. What is success? If you're going down the wrong road, right? If you're going on the wrong road towards what you think your goal is, going through all these obstacles, only to when you get there, it's not even what you wanted to do. You'll be a very depressed human being. And I think sometimes, people have checked out of this life, real talk, because of that, right? Because, I can't take it no more. And it just ended because either that journey was too much or the end goal that they thought was going to bring that success wasn't the right goal or targets for them. So I'll throw it back to you, Paul. You brought this topic into this room, and it's the more we unpack it, it's the more you realize, okay, should we set why we're gonna persevere before we get on that path, Paul, or should we make sure we set the goal right? Or do we embrace that you may have to change and realize that life is about the experience and not thinking you have everything figured out?
It's funny you said, because that was my next point, defining perseverance now and talking a bit about that. What is perseverance again, right? It is us continuing in the face of adversity, in the face of obstacles, to continue to whatever that prize is going to be, right? There's lots of times we feel like giving up and say, wait a minute, maybe this is not for me because we face obstacles. Far too often people give up before they even get towards where it is. I mean, I can sit here and pontificate and give you tons of examples of guys who have got great success and the whole rags to riches story. North America loves to do that, right? But, I think we know about enough of them. I won't go into that, but the point I'm making is how many of those have we even had in our own lives? I can say for me, I'm on my, sixth career. I remember when I first started teaching students as a young person, and I was doing employment teaching, employment placement, and job counselor, etc. And the statistics came out, and I'm aging myself now. This is back in the 1990s, 96, to show you how old I am, right? And I was telling, these young students that most likely they're going to have, 4 and 5 and 6 careers, the study had said, not jobs, careers, right? Now, gone are the days where people have gone into one career, they sit down in one company and they escalate their way up the ladder and get to the top, and they call that success. They go from being frontline worker to supervisor to manager to director to VP to whatever it is, right? That's the North American dream, so to speak, that we're kind of sold and a lot of people believe in. However, that's for a very small few, because at the end, there can only be one winner. If you're talking about running a race, there's only really one winner of the race. If you're talking about winning a championship and your goal is to be the champion of the league, there's only one. What about the other how many teams that are in there, right? So yes, you can set your goal to that, and I often have, but it's taught me some other life lessons along the way. I have taught Teams that have gone in the face of adversity and won championships. Like just last year alone, I won a provincial championship and then turned around and won the league championship and the cup championship. And at the end of the year, most of the team walked off because it wasn't the team's goal, so to speak. So I recognize that, right? It was kind of my goal. We came all of our goals, but trying to achieve something has been different. That's just part of my personality. Anything I've set my mind to, I have persevered, and I've faced lots of opposition in getting that task. I can remember times where I fought, and I even faced a lot of racism, and I thought, what the hell am I doing this for? Even just in my soccer career, starting out very young in my coaching career, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and really excited meeting some of these elder coaches or famous coaches, and you want to be like that guy, right? And then you face the reality of having to deal with the world and deal with challenges such as racism and favoritism and nepotism, all the isms, right? But I persevered. I persevered through that. I remember being ripped to shreds in front of a whole group of coaches as one of the only few colored people there, and constantly the person was on me about little things that are ridiculous. And like Tiff said, you can say woe is me and get all pissed off and whatnot. But part of it, then that's where the perseverance comes in, to recognize that it's something to help you build your character, right? So I persevered through that, and look today, now I'm a national licensed coach in this country, right? I never thought that for myself initially when I started out, but somewhere along the way I made it a goal, right? And I persevered. So, also about perseverance, how do you then continue to develop perseverance, right? Because perseverance is also a skill, right? Being able to do something in the face of adversity, but understanding that it is just delayed, right? You're delayed. Maybe it's not your time, or maybe it's not your season or your reason. And part of that delay is you being perseverant through whatever that thing is, because as Tiff had mentioned earlier, you're learning or getting another skill set. Sometimes if we reach places when we're not ready or not supposed to be, then it may be far worse. And sometimes the timing is there for us, so we get there at the right time in the right place. It's like making that pass, Andy. You're saying last week, two of us, you don't know how you're gonna go. Both of us hogging the ball, but it's okay. It's you gotta know what runs I'm making. I gotta know what runs you're making. So when I dribble three man and I do a nutmeg and I pan and I pull a ball, you gotta keep making the run. So when I drop it back post, you could do your bicycle like Pele and his back of the net. They say, what the hell happened there? That's what perseverance is, and we're trying to teach that into the young kids nowadays. They don't know to keep making that run, even though you don't see the ball, right? They don't know to keep going, right? Keep on going no matter what. But again, you have to have something in mind what you're keeping on going for. For me, each one of my goals, I've kind of gotten to the mountaintop or as high as I can go in that particular area or endeavor. And then it's been about another career or another task or another goal. But the bigger point is all those different pieces and goals I'm now seeing as I get older are contributing to the bigger whole of yet something else that's still left undone to come, right? And without the skill sets I would have had in the past, I mean, like I said, just to quickly mention, I've had 6, 7 careers. Like I said, fully careers. I've had a career as in IT, right? I was a director in IT. I could have stayed in that field, but I got tired of the break and fix, answering support, answering people. No offense, I thought people are dumb. Why am I keep doing the same thing, So from IT, I did marketing, I did youth employment, I did web development and design and media. I did now education. I did sports and soccer. So like I said, I've had a number of careers, and I even had graphic design and media design specifically as careers, right? So all those skill sets now lend towards who I am. But the point I've learned along the way is perseverance and continuing in the face of that. I'm not labeling myself or letting myself be labeled in that one area, but continuing to persevere and understand that I'm also building another trait towards that success that I'm seeking. Over to you, Tiff.
I actually have a question. I brought up a question. So, in the context of success, how do y'all distinguish between a healthy perseverance and an unhealthy refusal to give up despite a negative consequence?
Okay, if I can take that, Tiff, I think for me, I don't know if there's an unhealthy perseverance. I think there's life lessons along the journey of perseverance. And that's what the point I was making earlier. You can be going down the wrong road on the path to determination and perseverance. But in every opportunity, there's an opportunity to learn. The word failure really is a word. It doesn't exist. Life is not like baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. You can keep swinging until you get a home run. Once there's time on the clock, you have a chance. So I don't know if there's an unhealthy, for me, my perspective is all perseverance is good because it's going to bring some sort of lessons and it's going to allow you to redirect your path if you're going down the wrong road. But you have to have that criteria within your DNA to achieve any meaningful goal. We can go get a job. Everybody can do that. That doesn't require any kind of perseverance. Most people are stuck in a job as a result of that because that's not what they want to do. But it's safe. It's easy. It doesn't have the obstacles of navigating your entrepreneur life. You know, entrepreneurs, they always say they're built with a different DNA. Well, within that DNA has to be that ingredient, perseverance or determination without question. So for me, I don't think it's an unhealthy versus healthy. I think it's just the definition of the destination. What is your real goal? What are you going after when you persevere? That's how I see it.
So do you
Yeah, it's
find you should
interesting.
shift perspectives when that goal starts to not align with the perseverance per se? For example, so I do have a story. So my mom had always, always, always wanted to be a principal, and she ended up going for her doctorate. And that ended up taking a lot of time away from her being able to be a wife and a mom. It was a very stressful process for her. And she has so much experience behind her, and she has gone to assistant principal, but it was more of like a fill-in position. And she actually never ended up, she's still teaching to this day. She has about 3 years left in teaching, and she has never actually achieved the goal of being a principal. So at some point, she had kind of stepped back and said, well, I don't think it's going to happen. But along that way now, you can't get back that time, right? And it's not necessarily a waste. However, at what point, like how far do you think that, at what point do you change that goal where you say, okay, this is not working? Because it was years. It was a long time.
It's a great question, and you actually brought up some points in that too as well. Thanks, Andy. A couple of things, right? First of all, if you're not going to be happy in something, yeah, we go through bouts of time. If you're not going to be happy and you end up with regret, that's the first thing there. You have to know yourself what you're going to be happy with and what we're okay to live with, right? Like, yes, everybody in any field that wants to achieve greatness or goal has to go to extraordinary lengths. Something has to give up in return, and often that's time, right? And as you know, for family, the most important thing is time. I value time more than anything else because time is the one thing that everybody is given equally. When someone gives it to you, it's the most precious gift in the world they can give you. It's worth the most value, right? Because it only has the value that you and or the others ascribe to it. It's all the same. We're all given it. You can decide to invest it. You can bank it. You can waste it. You can give it away. You can earn it. You can do whatever. But we're all given time, and we're allowed to do what we want with that time. The question then is, what do you do with it, and how you perceive what you've done with it? Because how you perceive it as well is different. You might perceive it one way. How others perceive that you perceive it is another way. And then how others perceive you is another in all of that. So there's three different parts of the perception process as well. But I think, again, just bringing it back to the point and bringing it back home to answer your question, perseverance in and of itself is recognizing a few things. You need perseverance. It helps determine a healthy attitude and behavior and grit and stick-to-itiveness. They have some studies, actually. I was looking at a study the other day on Harvard Business Review, which was talking about, under the area of decision-making, problem solving, and when to stick with something and when to quit, right? It was a really interesting article. And it found that many people actually stick to something far too long, and it has negative connotations with them being unwilling to let go, being unwilling to get to the next thing, or realize that, perhaps this is not for them. They should kind of maybe do something else, right? But the point about the study, the interesting point about it was that the negative connotations it had on people's mindset, right? That was the point. It found that people were particularly really good in terms of, reaching that success. When they didn't, did they really recognize to give up, because they equated giving up with failing, right? And that's the problem there. And, but in order to get success, you have to fail. And the point we're talking about now, because we're looking at it nowadays, is that, it is about our mental health, and that's really cherished nowadays, and even more so since the pandemic. People are being much more fixated and much more understanding of mental health, right? But the point we're trying to make, or I'm trying to make here, is that it really comes down to the kind of person you are and how you set those goals. If you see it as a waste, then it's going to be a waste no matter what. Are you prepared? You hear about a lot of great coaches, what they give up, missing birthdays, missing families. Your kid doesn't understand that. I had the same challenge in my race for being a coach. They told us we couldn't miss. I was doing my national A license. We couldn't miss anything. My daughter's graduation, I had to miss it because they said we can't miss that week. Then I see somebody else leaving on the Thursday. They're not there for the day because they said if you miss one day at all, period, you know, you won't get your license. You need to be there for the full week. So here I am sacrificing because I want that license to get to that point. My daughter's graduation, I didn't go. And that's the one thing that she still regrets. I kind of don't really regret it so much, but I do think twice about it. What was it worth? Then when I question him, why was this person allowed to leave? Oh, they had mitigating circumstances. But you said you're not at all allowed to leave. And my daughter was graduating. He said, well, had you asked, we'd have let you go too. But they didn't make that clear, and I didn't think to ask, right? You know, because I'm trying to play by the rules. You're trying to get that success, that award. So part of it is, you know, us asking the questions along the way and learning about what our unwillingness is to reach that goal. Was I unwilling to miss my daughter's graduation? I wasn't, right? So that's still something I know. We're okay with it, but it still bothers her because all my other kids, I was at their graduation, but I wasn't at hers, right? So that's something that's going to last forever. It lasts forever, the fact of me, my absence of not being there, that hole that's left in there. So can I call it a success or a failure when it comes to my relationship with my daughter and how that's perceived? I don't know, right? And, you know, careers, like we said before, are often labeled with people giving inordinate amount of time towards the job or the action and leaving family behind because all in the pursuit of that success. The point now is for you to recognize what is important to you.
So let me jump in and say this, Tiff. When do you give up? When do you know you have to change direction? It's an individual thing, because you know we all have a different psychology and a different belief system. The word sacrifice comes to mind. You know, in this perseverance, there's a lot of sacrifice, and if it's time sacrifice, which is, you know, it's not infinite. You know, you can't get it back, to your point. You have to come with a trigger and a mechanism to recognize as quick as possible you're going down the wrong road. So you're not persevering in vain, because it's too much of a sacrifice when you're persevering for a goal to not be on the right road. You really can't keep missing it, to your point, Tiff, because tomorrow is not even promised. So because we know time is so precious and tomorrow is not promised, we don't have the luxury of just keep going down the wrong road, persevering, only to realize you're in the wrong road, you're in the wrong lane, you're climbing the wrong ladder, however you want to put it. So to answer your question, I think the individual need to recognize that as soon as they can. And I think maybe what would be a trigger for that recognition? Is it making you happy? Are you enjoying what you're doing? To me, that could be the barometer to allow you to recognize this is not for me. And if we get out to this, or you're a quitter never wins, winners never quit. You know, man has found ways to enslave other people with what they want them to do versus what you want to do. If you define your own path and you know what success is for you, it's not about quitting, it's about redirected. If we're trying to go to New York, but I'm heading Florida, I got to turn around. I can't be done, but I'm not going to quit. I'm just going to go, because I'm never going to reach my destination going down the wrong road. If my GPS is not calibrated right, I can't get to my goal anyway. So you got to recognize, and I think for me, Tiffany, what I've recognized is, to Paul's point, I do value time. Time is our wealth. You know, we said time is money. Time is worth way more than money. Time is freedom. Time is wealth. Time is spending or investing with loved ones, because the journey is going to end. And that's how important time is. So if we make it an equation for money, we're going to lose. Because how many people, I mean, what's his name? Robin Williams. I don't know anyone who didn't like Robin Williams. The man jumps to his death, right? What's going on there? You know, we defining people's success. We're looking at them, and then you hear the tragedy of how they end their life. So they have money, they have fame, they have this, they have that. Why was it not enough? Because if we don't define it for ourselves, I think you started that conversation, Tiff. We don't define it for ourselves, we're going down the wrong road. So determination, perseverance, sacrifice, it's in vain, really, because we didn't define our path. Whether our parents put it in us or society put it in us, defining what success is, you know, in the culture we come from, doctors, lawyers, if you're doing something else, to them, you're wasting your life, right? And I'll say one more thing. The culture we come from is so messed up in terms of how we view life. I think God has given us all gifts. That's the compass of what you enjoy doing. That's your gift, right? And when you align with that and you create a purpose for that, then that journey, that determination, that perseverance is an enjoyable one because it's something you want to do. In our society, it's all about, oh, study your work, study your work, study your work, study your work. As everybody should only be academically gifted. And they dismiss the value of sports, the value of art, the value of culture, and all these other things. You want to sing, what are you going to do with that? You want to act, what are you going to do? But it's the same society that's worshiping the Hollywood actors. You know, they're worshiping all these people in these careers. They're not putting up a building for the top brain surgeon in Trinidad. They got stadiums named after only athletes. So it's a hypocritical society and life when if you listen to the noise and the rhetoric about what they're telling you you're supposed to do and only value, hey, straight A's, and if you're not doing that, you're a failure. That's the problem with us when we let people determine our path, I think.
I think as well, Andy, it's a good point you said. If you equate it back to sports, you think about baseball players who play in the minor league or players who play in lower leagues of soccer. Not everybody's destined to be the 1%. We forget the numbers and the percentages, right? Somebody who's educated and knowledgeable about numbers and about situations, if you're a betting man, you're going to bet whereby your chances of winning are the best, right? You're not going to bet where your numbers are very, very low. So when people talk about perseverance of getting to a job or a position, you have to sit down and also understand the playing field and know about what you're setting your goals up for, because don't forget, there are goals, we make them, but what are the chances if you're making yourself a goal of, something that sometimes often becomes unrealistic? It's not necessarily not listening to those around you, but it's setting yourself up to say that it's not a realistic goal for whatever it is. It could be like, I'm what, 55 years of age, I want to become the next professional soccer player. Well, you're 55, I'm saying? That's just an extreme example. It's kind of ridiculous, right? And they have so many tests out there that have shown that people who persevere in the face of, again, which I think we're hitting, are not recognizing, what they're doing. They continue on. So they did a lot of tests online about people and their perseverance, and they give them boring tasks to do and stuff that was menial, and just to see if they'd finish it. And many people didn't give up. They continued to persevere, even if they gave them negatives, things that were from the test that would be harmful towards them. So they did this as a research piece just to see what people were willing to do. And we all believe in this idea of persisting, which is great, right? However, the issue here is it worthwhile? Is it an endeavor, an area you're going to be successful? And so going back to just myself talking about my career, when I have 6 careers, I realized in certain places, it just wasn't right for me. It could be the timing. Now, I could have stayed in that and said, hey, why didn't you stay in that to get to success? Because you're not going to get success because you change and shift gears. Well, it wasn't only that, it was also because I recognized something. And for me, I had achieved a success that I was happy with at that level. So for me, it's time to move on to something that is bigger and better. So back to your point, is really recognizing along the way, and same thing you're saying, Andy, that you are doing the right thing in the right place, because there's so many studies that show us about how people achieve success, right?
Yeah, but Paul, I think I gotta push back on the studies thing. Who's making those studies, son? My life, when I say we all have a gift, I don't care if they tell you 0.001% is gonna do it. Then you part of that 0.001. If this is what you want to do, no test, no statistic should tell you, let's be realistic. You see, the word realistic for me don't exist. Is it realistic that we have AI and ChatGPT? We got so much invention that when we started to do it, it wasn't realistic. My point of view, Paul, to push back on stats and studies is this man. That's not God. That's all man coming up with mechanism to control our thinking, no matter what we say. You made an extreme point at 55. Yes, is it realistic? But if someone as a young kid is going after a goal, it's the wrong thing to look at who's going to make it, because those who make it ain't necessarily because they had more talent than you anyway. This whole game to make it in sports and this and that, it's so biased and skewed, and we think, oh, it's the top elite that made it. This is BS. We see players who can't play in MLS, play in Premier League. They cannot play. And how are they there if it's about the elite 1% making it? That's a different conversation for me. And I get really emotional about it, because if you align your gifts and that's what you want to do, and God has put that in you to do, go do it. That's my thing. I teach that, I preach that, I live that. And I don't watch the numbers to determine, because that's going back to us defining what the success is. If you want to do it, because when we die in, we don't care about shit we didn't do, right? We only care about the things that we really, really valued. And that's the life of regret many times, because if we dig deep, we didn't do what we wanted to do. We wanted to do it, but I didn't want to disappoint mom. I didn't want to disappoint dad, or I didn't want to disappoint spouse. And ultimately, I say this, we responsible for our own salvation. That's how I see life. When it's you and God and in your dying days, it's not about the statistics anymore, Paul. And I hear what you're saying, because you're not countering this in that regard, but I don't believe in the numbers because man made those numbers up. The studies, I'm a scientist, so many publications, and they made up stuff. They changed the statistical analysis to support what they want. I'm on a spiritual level of when you believe, you're gonna achieve. If you determine, you're gonna get to a destination. If it ends up being the wrong goal, change and go do something else. But this ingredient that you throw in today, perseverance, success, is ultimately how any meaningful goal will be achieved. I won't say that. Not defining what the success is, not defining the journey. And if we don't have perseverance, we might as well throw in the towel, go get a job, do what other men want you to do, or women, as opposed to what you want to do. That's how I see it. Now,
just to
Tiffany,
push
you've
back
been
on what you're
listening.
saying.
I think we got here Tiff now. Let's go back and forth and not bring Tiff in. Let's hear Tiff. She asked a question. We answered it. Now back to you.
So you brought up talent, which does bring up both of y'all have had coaching careers. And so do you think that perseverance holds more weight than talent when it comes to achieving success? Because there are kids that will not be necessarily great at a sport, but they'll get out there and they'll do what them other kids ain't doing just because they're good at it. I am a product of that as well. I picked up a soccer ball and I was great at it since day one. Came very natural to me. My brother really had to work for it, but he was a kid who would be out there when nobody else was and running the sprints and doing those things that he needed to do and really working towards that goal. So does perseverance hold more weight than talent when it comes to achieving success? Or do you think they just complement each other?
I'll let my partner go first. I love to share the mic. I'll let Paul answer, and then I can take what I'm thinking.
I'll say this, to answer your question, but to reflect a bit on what Andy had said prior. It's not about an elite of 1% that get there. It's the numbers of the fact that people over the whole population get there. It's not about elitism, right? So understanding statistics and numbers helps inform you to understand what you're up against. Then you have to decide how perseverant you're going to be, right? I mean, you need to be educated to understand certain things. You can just go off and not have any understanding, but you'll learn along the way. The point about what you're asking, is it one or the other? Here's what's interesting. You tell me one person who is the top person. If you look at any of those top people right now in my class, I'm doing a course. It's called Soccer, the World's Game. And this week's topic was, icons and representatives of the game, which we looked specifically at Ronaldo, Beckham, Messi, Pele, and others, right? Do you think any one of them didn't have perseverance? Do you think any one of them would be where they are and who they are without perseverance? It's a must. It's a necessary. Yes, there are people who gain favor and who get to certain places where they shouldn't, and all these other factors. But at the end of the day, if you don't have perseverance, you're not going to be there. Just that simple. Every single person you're looking at the top of anything, whether it's
Don't have
sports
perseverance
or
and
entertainment,
brother.
you're gonna have.
It goes
No,
hand in
of
hand,
course.
Paul. We can't isolate it, Paul. This is where we're gonna get pushed back. Perseverance is one piece. People have died and killed themselves with more talent than the icons you call. They didn't get a chance. We have to address the real thing beyond the statistic about who makes it when it comes to access and opportunity. That is a factor too. We cannot just isolate and talk about
You didn't even let me get to that. So I hadn't even got to that. All I was
No,
talking
but we have time for just one perspective. So I got to jump back in because you're addressing me. She asked another question though. So I mean, we
I was
really
addressing her question actually, but as part of what you had addressed prior. So all I was saying is that addressing that specific trait with her, what your question actually was, it's a trait that's not one or the other. It's a trait that it's a
no,
must.
she said talent. That's why I'm holding on to that word.
Talent,
That's another word.
talent versus
What is
perseverance.
talent? What is talent? That's
They
why
all
I want you to go first. So let's deal with talent. What's that word? Define it. Talent. Let's us three define it, and I'll guarantee you we have a different definition. What's talent? Paul, what's talent? Define talent. Don't look it up. Your word meaning talent. What's talent?
My word?
Yeah, what is talent? Let's go with the word talent because we're talking about, this thing about the talent to do something.
Skill applied under pressure and situation in order to solve problems. That's
Okay.
my definition of talent.
All right, Tiff, your
If I look up
definition of
anything,
talent.
that's my definition.
Okay, right. Tiff,
Right?
your definition of talent.
Ooh, that's tough. I've always viewed it as a natural ability. Not saying that it doesn't need to be built over time, but I think that skill, you can get skilled, you can gain skills throughout life, I think. Because if I go out and I work on my juggling for a month, it will become a skill. But I'm not talented at it right off rip. That's not one thing I'm talented at naturally. But yeah, I always took it as a natural ability. And then you just kind of sharpen that ability.
And therein lies what
So
I'm
it has to be
saying.
natural.
Well, hold
It
on,
has to
hold
be
on.
natural.
Can I give my
No,
talent?
I'm just asking her a
definition?
question on that. I wanted to just expound on that point. Does it have to be natural?
I say talent is natural. Yes. I say that that's your gift, as Andy would say. That would be like your gift. Because some people are naturally funny. Some people really be trying at it and they ain't funny. So there's certain things that just come to people that are natural. Other people build it as a skill. You can work on it, but that is where you start to push more into the skill aspect of things, not a talent.
So why would they say naturally talented? Then you wouldn't need two words of one to describe the next. Because talent, that would infer that you can be talented. It's not
Paul, I
natural.
need my turn to define talent, please. Let's
Right.
share the mic, please. Okay. I need to talk. Talent, that's my point. I made my point already. You're talking about a word that have different meaning to different people always. So I don't use that word to evaluate ability at all because it's contaminated, because it goes into the eyes of the beholder. What do you mean by talent? Okay, skill, talent, perseverance. The harder you work, the more talented you get, or the more skill you get at something you want to achieve. It could be a natural affinity because maybe you like it, and so you put your mind on it. You know, the first time I told AJ, you know, here's what you need to do, boom, 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 and to ride, you know, we always say you got to learn to fall to ride. And then the guy just started riding with just giving instructions. I've never seen that, but he's not a cycler. So sometimes, as you say, you have this understanding of how to apply a skill, right? Naturally or unnaturally, whatever you want to say, and it becomes, oh, you're so talented. I think it's contaminated because people are given opportunities and labels early, and then others are not given that chance. I have an example of a guy who said his son was 9 in the Fulham Academy when the coach came to him and said, listen, man, he told the kid, you're not going to be a footballer. I've been evaluating footballers all my life and you just don't have it. Don't waste your time. You're not going to be a professional footballer. At 9 years old, he went up to the kid and told him that. His dad said, do you know who I am? And the coach said, but, you know, sir, with all respect, I don't really care who you are. I know who I am, and I evaluate kids with ability, with talent all the time, and your kid ain't going to make it. Needless to say, his kid is a professional footballer. So this word is a weapon. This word gets talent, no talent, and then we run with it if we believe. I believe in teaching, the harder you work, the more talented you become at what you are persevering to achieve. Because skills is wrapped in there, Tiff. Nobody came out of the crib juggling, nobody. And if you learn how to juggle faster than me, it's because you have more talent, because the game have multi-facets to it. Juggling is one little, it's not even the game actually, because you got people who can juggle better than all the names he called and never stepped on a football field and played 1 minute of a real game. Because the game has so many other components than technical, and technical gets skewed in terms of the talent conversation on every level. Look at his touch. Look at, yeah, but can he run? Does he have a psychology of believing when things are chips are down? Is he going to fight? There's so much, you know, it's a weapon. Again, my point was Paul defined it and you define it, and it wasn't lining up. So if we're going to use that to say, should you quit something because you don't have the talent for it, that is a problem as well that people buy into. You want to go after it, man, and you don't have it naturally, but that's what you want to do. God bless you. Go do it. That's between you and your God. That's how I see it.
But it's still a requirement for you to be persevere, right? So if you give up before you even get to know or get to that point, then you're not going to be successful. The point I was making is that's a commonality of any person, whether it be football, business, whatever. They'll all tell you the same story, that they persevered through, for some of them, extreme adversity. And it's that extreme adversity ended up making them who they are, right? You look at, you know, so many different fields with different people. they have a commonality in the story. It's not about statistics or me spouting statistics or whatever studies or who did the study. There are commonalities, right? And everybody goes through a hot streak in their life for a period of time. Everybody. You look at entertainment, there are people who come in, yes, and it's manufactured, and people are trying to manufacture it further, but everybody gets to a point whereby they're able to then have a mass audience. Like they say, the world's a stage and you all get your 15 seconds. The question now is, what are you going to do with that 15 seconds? And do you persevere to even get to that fixed 15 seconds? If you don't persevere, you never get to that, right? So perseverance to me, it's a must, it's a necessity. But again, you must recognize what to persevere in. That was the point I was making. So if you want to look and if you want to have somebody as your icon and you want to espouse to, which people do, I don't do that, but again, they do that. That's the world we live in. The commonality is the same thing once again. So to answer your question, I'm just saying that it's a necessity, because you're not going to get to be that successful. You don't persevere. I don't care how much favor someone gives you, how much opportunity you're given. People squander opportunities too as well. And you get found out pretty quickly as well, right? And we see it now, a lot. Again, we're talking about football because we're football coaches. Lots of people in the top level flight are coaches who have failed their way forward, but they're not that successful because they continually fail, right? And at the end of the day, they're given opportunity over and over and over. But guess what? Depends again what you're looking at successful, but they'll never be that successful because is the talent really there? But how has the talent been developed? Back to Andy's point, have they put the time in? Have they been perseverant, or have they just been given that opportunity? It's been handed to them, right? So as you
But
said,
that's what I like to address too, Paul. Sorry, that one, to me, when you come out of the life I came out of, I'm not going to let that not be given as a part of the conversation. Too many times you beat up kids who quit because they didn't have food. Their socioeconomic situation was bad, and we talk about they quit. No, they didn't have somebody then take them from Argentina and put them in a place where, the keys were given to them to become the greatest and get how many La Ballon. This thing is so rigged that I get emotional about it because we don't talk about the reality of the journey of perseverance and opportunity enough. We look at it and we measure all these kids in places where they were war savage and all this stuff, and they walked 100 miles to get to a level of just having a life and then still make it. They don't get talked about because this thing is deeper than
right?
It's deeper than just the perseverance and the achievement of a goal to become an icon in the media. It's really deeper than that. Under the hood of what we discuss in the day is for you as an individual that the world don't know about. You have that ingredient called perseverance and you have your goal lined up, you will achieve it. And once you continue to understand that it's going to be ups and downs and don't quit, you'll get to your destination. Now, when you get there, based on the level of your goal, when you're a goal-oriented person, you're going to reset because you really live life purposeful. You're going to always reset and set another goal and reset and set another goal. You're never going to just sit there and say, I'm at the mountaintop. People who are wired like that is always going to keep looking at, in my opinion, another challenge because they understand that it is about that journey of overcoming, and they determine, they don't quit, they have that grit, everything we're talking about today. And Paul, the only reason why I push back on the looking at before you start, remember what we believe is going to limit our behavior or impact our behavior. So if somebody starts looking at the statistics of how much makes it, to say, let's be real, right there, you've opened a door of doubt to make somebody quit once obstacles come. Well, only a certain amount is going to make it anyway.
I disagree. You're saying that. I'm not saying. I'm saying, again, everybody's personality is different. For me, I'm a different person. I like to know what I'm going into. I want to know what the challenge I'm up against. I used to call it the dupe factor. You go places, you get duped because you were not prepared to understand what you're going into. That's on you. You failed to do your homework. You failed to prepare before the class. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you're going to make it or not going to make it. I'm just saying there's another aspect. I firmly believe it's good for you to be informed. That's just how I've lived my life, to know about what the challenges are going to be and then how to face them. It doesn't mean you give up because of it. What it means, though, is you're more equipped to face it. Again, that's just my perspective. Everybody has their own perspective on it. But again, I firmly believe it's good to know and understand what you're up against and where you're going. Far too often we see, back to your point, too many of our young, men and women going to places and spaces where they're not wanted and they're going to face adversity and they weren't prepared for it. And that's part of the problem. I think we have another, responsibility to help them be prepared to understand what it's about. I'm not saying that you shouldn't change your goal. You never heard me once say, I've never, ever been negative to tell somebody about the ups and downs about achieving their goal. Let me tell you a real quick story about a phone call I got this morning from a parent about one of the girls I used to coach. And, he's thanking me once again for putting on the right path. She's somebody that I coached for a couple of years, and she was a striker. And I told her that she'd be better off as a goalie. Not to say she can't play the game, but we needed a goalie going to a game. And I said, given your skill sets, from what I see, I think you will have more longevity, but it's up to you. And I helped work with her, and I turned her into a super keeper, a player that played the back with her feet as a goalie. She was phenomenal, right? She ended up getting a scholarship. During COVID, the scholarship was lost. And then she was smart enough that she was able to then go back and get 2 more scholarships. She ended up at a school, once the name of the school, went there, had a great coach the first year, stepped in when the lead goalie wasn't doing so well, took over the team, became a leader. And then the coach, for some reason now, wants to go with this other player that's been there from before her for a couple of years and made that person back the main goalie, even though she was better. So now she's got to face adversity. What'd she do? She went on, stayed at the school, got a full scholarship. She's valedictorian. She's president of the student athletic union, right? She's getting scholarships. She's doing well, even though they got to the national championship this year. And at the end of her run, having been there 4 years, she didn't play at all this year. I think she played in 1 game. She made the decision not to go to the national championships. Why? Because she said, it's not about only playing soccer, it's about other things that are around the game. So she's now a coach. She coaches locally, and she just accepted her master's to go to school where? In Austria. She's going to be going to school in Austria, and she's looking for opportunities to coach and still be a part of the game and still grow. My point in telling you that is that he thanked me for having been somebody that opened her eyes to understand perseverance towards achieving bigger goals, and not just about only playing time or being a player. That's the father calling me this morning to give me feedback. So it was interesting because to me, that kind of ties into what we're talking about today, but it also helps me to understand that the influence you've had and what you've done in terms of being perseverant towards something. So I have to reconnect with her again. But again, had she given up or had she had the wrong attitude, she wouldn't continue to achieve the things that she could achieve in school as well, outside of the game, right? And, you know, so I'm really happy for her. I have to follow up with her and the dad to see where she's at next. But perhaps, Andy, we do a session, we have some of these young people come on, a few of them that you have mentored and I mentored as well, and let them talk about their experiences and where they're going, you know. So anyways, I just want to leave you with that in terms of my thoughts around perseverance, understanding where you're going into. And as part of preparing her for the negatives that what you said, Andy, you know, we go to so many places and you find coaches or people who are so wrapped up in things of the world, like you said, right? But at the same point, my point is just, it's important for us to have an understanding and help to prepare people by understanding what the information is in front of them. That's all.
Well, Tiff, you've been really doing a lot of listening. You've asked a lot of the questions. I'm gonna leave you to kind of frame. We're at the end here. Just kind of, Tiffany, just summarize what you think the take-home points are. One of the things about a tie-dye talks is the one thing to think it or discuss it. You also want to help push people into the do-it phase of life, right? Think it is hope and do it is faith. I'll put it to you, Tiff, to take us home on. Just summarize what you got from the perseverance of success and all the ups and downs. You see how passionate I get when it comes to people not getting a fair chance. I really do get passionate about that. And that gets, to me, that doesn't get discussed enough. Maybe we should bring that up because it's not like you wanted to quit. Life has beaten you down. People have pulled the rug from under you. And it's easy to say, hey, this person quit, this person didn't have it in them. It's only the 1%. Man, I subscribe to a very different philosophy about opportunities, perseverance, success. To you, to bring us home on how you see this, to take home points to the audience, the folks that that watches this, that gets something from this, what would you say?
With all the points that have been discussed today, I think it's very obvious that it is not just perseverance, straight line, success. There's a lot of different ingredients that go into what we consider success. And that can have to do with the tools that we're given, the tools that we pick up along the way, the environment that we're placed in, the environments that we go through. I think that self-awareness is also a really big piece of success. You need to be aware of yourself. And all of these things affect success along the way. Success is a journey, not a destination, many people will say. And in this life, one thing that's also really important for people to remember is that everybody has a choice. Every single day you have choices. You are not free from the consequences of those choices, though. And so with that, you need to take that into consideration when you do make these choices along your journey to success and how that's going to affect your journey. And if you stumble along the way, I think it's also important to look back and say, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I take from this? You sort through that rubble and you look at the pieces that you can pick up and take for the next piece of your journey. So how do y'all think that individuals can really strike that balance between perseverance and adaptability to navigate those changing circumstances?
I thought you were gonna close. Now you throw another question in.
I had to throw a small question back because we
Okay.
have to strike the
Small?
balance.
Paul, go first. I'm going.
I was gonna let you go. I was
Okay.
gonna let you go. You go ahead,
All
Andy.
right. He's learning to pass the ball. Thank you. I would say this. Repeat the question. Let me make sure I get it right.
So how can individuals strike a balance between the perseverance and adaptability to navigate these changing circumstances on this path to success?
Yeah. First of all, the striking the balance. I'm a Libra, and so I think they told me it's not going to ever be balanced. So trying to strike a balance is a losing proposition in this life. There is no balance. The balance you strike is, I think, you develop your psychology of achievement. You know, you understand what it's going to take for you to go through what you want to do to achieve that goal. You have to develop that psychology. You got to, maybe you have to erase some false beliefs, because I have this equation I run life on, Tiffany and Paul. Belief equal thoughts, thoughts equal feelings, feelings equal actions, and action equal results. So if you don't recalibrate the GPS of belief, the thoughts could get in the way of striking that balance that you're asking about. And I think that thoughts is what navigates our action, right? It links to emotion, feeling. If you don't feel to go to work, you don't feel to train, if you don't feel to read, you ain't gonna do it. That emotional intelligence, that feeling compass is a powerful part of how we behave that leads to our actions. So when we're looking at the results component, success, the end goal, but there's a whole range of steps, as you just said, when we navigating to strike
And
that
Mr. Trump.
balance. I'm not sure the balance is really there to strike if we don't deal with the belief system, the mindset that we have to start off this journey.
Yeah, I'll say that again, for me specifically, it's all about, for an individual, what they themselves are trying to do and go and be. And that's not a static thing. You're forever evolving, you're ever changing, you're ever growing, right? So you have to determine what that balance looks like. However, if you understand perseverance, it's the idea of staying the course through things when you face adversity. You're going to face adversity. Nothing's going to be easy or a cakewalk, no matter who you are in life, no matter what your disposition, class, background, whatever it is, there's always going to be challenges, right? And it is how you react to those challenges and what your mental state is. As you heard Andy say, and you're saying, we all have different mental states too, because mental acuity and mental strength is something to be developed as well, right? But if you really look at it and you understand the race or success, it's your whole life. It's like I said in the beginning, just to bring it back home. What is it going to be said about you on your tombstone, on your record, your obituary? What are they going to say when they praise you at the end of your time? How is that going to be said? Isn't that the combination of who you are? Isn't that what your success is? Whatever you're leaving behind or whatever you've done, and hopefully you've done it in a way that you're happy, or that you have a positive mental state, because nobody wants to go through life unhappy, right? And with unresolved things and with regrets. So at the end of the day, it's a tie of all these things. But I would just say the balance for me is learning to persevere through those things, to find out for yourself where you want to be and where you're going and what you're achieving, right?
Okay, well, I think we have come to the end. I like to start on time and end on time, in that it's Friday and it's fantastic Friday. I live by daily themes. This has been amazing. This topic, again, is not something we prep. We show up and we just talk, because I think life lessons, we all have them. We have a lot of lessons, and this one today, this topic that Paul brought, is a very profound, ongoing topic. Tiffany, Paul, perseverance, success. I just simply think we need to learn to define the words and the meaning of the words before we start understanding this whole journey. You have so much miscommunication. We brought texting and other aspects of communication that only complicates. It's hard enough when we talk, because the words have different meaning to us. We figured that out. Success, talent, even perseverance. It has different meanings to different people. Failure, success. So I'm always about, before we start and embark on this life lessons talk, let's define what we're talking about, because everyone out there may have a different interpretation of what we meant today about perseverance equals success. Is this true or not? And it's not a straight line. So I think, I enjoyed it. I think it's something that I know for me, that going back to the determination definition I got from mom, is something I held on to. True or false, we get our psychology, and we hold on to beliefs, and we hold on to sometimes empowering things or disempowering things. And that's why we have to be very careful. And then if we're looking at the disempowering things and getting us to where we got to go, recalibrate in your own way spiritually, read books, listen to tapes, find things that could help you think and create that mindset for the goals that you want to achieve. That's how I do it.
Alrighty, so we will see you guys next time on Tie Dye Talks. Thanks for being with us today, and have a great week.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.